first ever 12-team college football playoff bracket has been revealed, and we're going to react to it here on Four Verts. My name is Harrison Graham. I got 3 or 4 big takeaways I want to get into, plus we'll take an early look at some of these first-round matchups. We'll dive deeper into those games as we get closer, but do want to touch on those just a little bit. But first, just want to say thank you so much for everybody who watched last night's bracket prediction. We got the right 12 teams, not the right order, but feel good about that. If you want daily and free college football videos here on 4Vert, subscribe. We're 75 subs away from 5,000. I would love to wake up tomorrow morning and have 5,000 subscribers on this channel. And if we do, we might do some college football playoff live streams and watch parties. So rock and roll with us here on 4Verts. Okay, here is the bracket. We'll break down the bracket, and then we'll discuss first the SMU-Alabama decision. The top 4 seeds, Oregon wins the Big Ten, Georgia out of the SEC, Boise winning the Mountain West, Arizona State out of the Big 12. I would have flipped Boise and Arizona State, but I don't think that's crazy consequential, but that's what I would have done. And then I thought 5 through 8 was pretty interesting. Texas gets the 5 seed despite no ranked wins. They will draw Clemson, who stays behind SMU, who still got in despite beating SMU head-to-head. Clemson's the 12. Penn State is the 6. They get SMU as the 11. Notre Dame plays Indiana in the 7-10 matchup. Ohio State will host Tennessee in the 8-9 matchup. Bama, first team out. Miami and Ole Miss falling behind. Okay, let's get to the SMU-Alabama decision, because that was the big debate. Who should be in? Who should be out? Bama obviously had the metrics argument. SMU, I would argue, had being the more consistent and dominant team throughout the season argument. I think it's pretty clear, and Ward Manuel said they noticed the difference in first half to second half, that SMU storming back, looking like the stronger team over Clemson by the end of the ACC Championship, played a role in keeping them in over Alabama. Now, from a who has better win standpoint, Alabama would have checked that box. But I think what people aren't discussing enough is the importance of the losses you have, how they look, and who you lose to. SMU lost by 3 points to BYU, who's in the top 20, and they hadn't switched to Kevin Jennings at quarterback yet. And they lost by 3 points on a 56-yard field goal to the ACC champion Clemson Tigers. Alabama's losses, a 21-point loss to Oklahoma, who went 6-6, a road loss to Vanderbilt, who went 6-6, and a third loss as well earlier in the season. So I think you look at to Tennessee, by the way, you look at this and you say, yeah, Bama's got better wins. They also have far better losses. And the one thing this college football playoff committee did this year, they did not diminish teams who made their conference championship game and lost competitively. Had SMU gotten blown out, I think they'd be out. Had Penn State gotten blown out, I think they would have fallen below Ohio State. They did not. They honored getting to your conference championship and at least being competitive. And I think that's a good precedent to set, because had SMU been knocked out in favor of Alabama, SMU would have been better off just refusing to play the ACC championship game, because at 11-1, they would have easily been in. So I think the committee made the right call. I don't think it's a perfect, SMU was leaps and bounds. They passed better eye tests, better metrics, all that stuff. There was debate and reason for it, but I think at the end of the day, this Alabama team had too many flaws, both eye test and resume-wise, to get the nod here. I think the committee got the 12 teams right. We'll get into some of the ordering and some of the flaws in this system here in just a moment, but I want to hear from you guys. Was SMU over Bama the right call? Type Y for yes, type in for no. I think it was. I think they're more worthy of getting in. I'm typing my Y for yes. Okay, let's get to some of the flaws in the system. I want to talk about Oregon. So Oregon, only undefeated team, 13-0, wins the Big Ten, one of the top 2 conferences in the country. And how do they get rewarded? They get the winner of Ohio State, Tennessee, which will not be an easy game, regardless of who they play. The team they beat last night, Penn State, who also lost to Ohio State, look at their path. They get SMU, which I don't think is a layup, but that's, on paper at least, an easier opponent than either Ohio State or Tennessee. And then they'll play Boise State in the semifinals. Now, I am still in the camp. I like the top 4 seeds being conference champs because that's really valuing winning your conference. I got no problem with that. Here's an easy fix. You have to reseed after the first round. And what I mean by that is Oregon plays the lowest seed remaining in the quarterfinals. Now, could that still be Ohio State or Tennessee? Yeah, that very well could still be the case. But if SMU were to upset Penn State, Oregon should get to play SMU instead, if that were to happen, or if Indiana were to win, et cetera, on and down the list. So I think it's kind of tough that Oregon gets punished for being the best team in college football this year and playing Ohio State or Tennessee. Now, maybe we're wrong. Maybe Indiana is better than Tennessee. Maybe SMU is better than Tennessee. Who knows? But I think on paper, and we saw Oregon play Ohio State came very close to beating Oregon. That's a bit of a tough draw. If Oregon runs the table and goes 16-0 and beats one of Ohio State or Tennessee in their first game, likely Texas in their second game, and potentially Georgia in the national championship, we'll see without Carson Beck. I know they haven't been dominant this year, but they would be 16-0, first team ever. I think that would put them in the conversation among the better teams in the history of college football, just in terms of the complete body of work and what they did to get to 16-0. More thoughts coming up, but I do want to tell you about our sponsor, Prize Picks. Get in on the action with some of these games. You got football, basketball, hockey, other sports available as well. Daily fantasy made easy. All you have to do is pick 2 or more players in your Prize Picks lineup, as long as they're players on 2 or more different teams, and pick more or less on the stats available for you. For example, it could be insert player, 55.5 receiving yards. You take more or less than that, pair that with insert player, 1.5 touchdowns, more or less. 2 to 6 player entries for your lineups. PrizePicks.com/CLNS. Use the code CLNS to get a $50 bonus when you play for just $5 initially. Only $5. Doesn't matter if you win or lose. PrizePicks.com/CLNS. Use the code CLNS to get that opportunity when you play for just $5. I got a lot of entries fired up here on this football Sunday, so go check out Prize Picks today. Link is in the comments and in the description. It's PrizePicks.com/CLNS, code CLNS, to get that $50 bonus when you play for just $5. Okay, few other thoughts here. I thought maybe Ohio State would be ahead of Penn State because with Penn State losing a second time, both them and Ohio State have 2 losses. Ohio State won the head-to-head in Happy Valley, by the way, and they played Oregon closer to Penn State. But again, at least the committee was consistent in this. They did not ding teams for being competitive in their conference championship game, so I don't have a huge problem with it. I do think you could make an argument for why is Texas the 5 seed. I think they pass the eye test a lot of the time. End of the day, though, 0 top 25 wins for teams who finish in the top 25. So I did not expect them to plummet after losing in overtime to Georgia. But when you look at their full resume, they did not beat a single ranked team, at least based on the final rankings. Now, they beat ranked teams when they played them, Texas A&M, Michigan, et cetera. But I do think you could have made an argument for one of those other teams, 5, 6, 7, to be at the number 5 seed. I think if you're Indiana, as we just get into some of these matchups now, could you have gotten a better draw? Short travel to Notre Dame. Notre Dame's a very good team, but they're not super explosive. If you're Indiana, muck that game up. I think that's the one team they at least could have a chance on based on who they could have potentially drawn in the first round. I like Notre Dame there, but I do think Indiana could be competitive. I think Penn State SMU is a fascinating game because SMU has a mobile quarterback, so if it's cold weather, they can run Kevin Jennings. They've got speed on the outside, which Oregon just gave Penn State major problems with good speed on the outside. The difference will be this. It'll be cold and outdoors at Happy Valley, whereas Penn State had to play Oregon indoors, which basically turned into a track meet. So you would give Penn State the edge there. That would neutralize some of SMU's speed, but I think SMU could play with Penn State. I think the clear game of the opening round is Tennessee-Ohio State. That's a heavyweight matchup. The storylines going into it are fascinating. Ryan Day, you feel like if he loses this game, he could get fired, which is kind of crazy to say. Josh Heupel has not won a lot of big games on the road, which Tennessee will have to travel to Ohio State. How does weather factor into that matchup, especially for Tennessee, which they like to spread it out and throw to the perimeter? That becomes more difficult in cold weather. They can lean on running back Dylan Sampson. And then Texas-Clemson. I think Texas was the big winner of this bracket. Sure, they don't get a first-round bye, but not only do they play the last team in the field, Clemson, I think Texas matches up really well with them. They get them at home, and if they win, Arizona State's red hot. That won't be easy, but compared to having to play like Oregon or Georgia in the second round, that's a pretty big win for Texas. I think the only thing that could have gone better for them is if Arizona State was the 3 seed, Boise was the 4, and then they would draw Boise potentially in the second round. So I'm excited. I think the right 12 teams are in. I think the system needs a couple of tweaks. Like I said, I think you need to reseed after the first round. But all in all, I think putting SMU in was right. And I think these first-round matchups are pretty entertaining. So I'm going to be excited to see how they all play out. What is your favorite first-round matchup? It's got to be Tennessee-Ohio State, right? That's what I'm rocking with. Let me know down in the comments section below. By the way, that'll be the Saturday night primetime game, so that's very exciting. The Friday night game is Notre Dame, Indiana. The Saturday noon game is SMU, Penn State. And then the Saturday afternoon game is Texas and Clemson. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of 4 Verts. The 12-team playoff is set. Hit that subscribe button on the way out. We'll have some NFL content either later today or tomorrow as well. My name is Harrison Graham. We'll see you guys soon here on 4 Verts.